Welcome back everyone. My name is Sagar and we are back here with another video. So this is the lecture number 15 of our Java and DSA course and I am super excited. Let me know in the comment section how is this new setup. And in the previous videos we learned about for loop, nested loops, and we also did some pattern questions, and today in this video we are going to cover some advanced patterns. So without making any further ado, let's get started. So before starting with today's video, let me just quickly show you the solution of previous task, and that was this. We had to print that pattern. So let us just, you can see here that was task 14. So we have to take one integer. First I will comment this. So we were taking this integer n, and then we have to print some pattern like this. So first I will start my outer loop. Okay, first before starting with that we have to find the pattern here, and you can see here in our first line, so we are printing here first one space, this second space, this third space. So for our first row we are printing three spaces, okay, and for our second row, here first, here second, so for our second row we are printing two spaces, and for our third row we are printing one spaces. If you want to print some spaces after these stars, then you can do it, but that is not compulsory. So in our fourth row we are printing zero number of spaces before our stars, and when we are talking about stars, for our first row we have one star, for our second row we have two stars, for our third row we have three stars, for our fourth row we have four stars. If you don't know about this thing, then go watch out previous video, then you can have a basic understanding of all this, how we can print patterns and how we can print stars and how we can print spaces before our stars. So that is just a quick recap. So we have to first print our spaces before our stars. So for our spaces the formula will be, so our number of spaces will be, so you can see here our n is equal to 4. So when our n is equal to 4, for our first row we are printing n minus 1, and for our second row we are printing n minus 2, or we can say our n is this 4. So for our first row, when our row is 1, we are using subtracting here our row number. Can we say it like this? Our number of spaces is equal to n minus number of row. So this is our first row, so our number of spaces is 4 minus first, that is 3, so it is correct. And let us take that for our row third. So for our third row n equal to 4, and for our third row we are printing n minus row, yani ki 4 minus row number 3, so we are printing only one star and one space, so that is correct. So this thing, let me erase that. So you can see here, for we have to print first spaces, so number of spaces will be n minus row times, okay, so n will be here constant and our number of row will increase. And after that we have to print our stars, so number of stars will be, so how many stars we have to print according to our number of row. If we have first row, then we have to print one star. If we are in second row, then we have to print only two stars, and so on. So our number of stars will be equal to our number of row. So that is it. So we have to do it like this. So first we will start our loop, outer loop, that will be printing our number of rows. So our number of rows, how many number of rows do we have? So we have n number of rows. So you can see here, this is our first row, this is our second row, this is third, this is fourth. So we are starting from our row number 1 to our row number n. So we can say it like this. So our row number will start from 1, and okay, it is recording, and our row numbers should be less than equal to n. So that if that n is 4, then we are printing one first row, second row, third row, and then fourth row. Okay, that is good, and every time row increases. And first, before printing our stars, we have to print these spaces, and how many spaces? N minus row times. So for spaces, and spaces, these will start from printing, so we have to print one spaces. Let us try that. Starting from 1, spaces should be less than equal to n minus row times. So n is our total number of rows and our current row, that is row, and space is plus plus. After that we have to just print a space, and after this loop, so after printing our spaces, now we have to print our stars, and star will be equal to number of row. So 4 and star equals to 1, star should be less than equal to our row number, and then star increases, so we have to just print a star, here a star, and let us check it. So if there is any problem, we will modify it according to that. And suppose if our n is 4, then okay, so we are using here println, we have to print and then again print, and after these two loops, then we have to again print a new line. So new line, so after printing, you can see here, after printing spaces and then a star, then we have to be in a new line, so then we have to print, then we have to use this println. So let us now check it again. If our n is 4, then our pattern is okay, we are printing here one extra space, no we are not printing. So for our first row we are printing one star, and before that we are printing 1 2 3. So yeah, we are printing only three spaces, here one, first, second and third space, and then a star. And for our second row we are printing 1 and 2. Yeah, we are printing two spaces in our second row. So this is the pattern here, that is it. So after this, now let's move to our next, now let's move to our today's patterns. So I will cut it here, and that is good. So I will create a new Java class, lecture number 15, and main method here. Okay, so after this, today's pattern are here. So first of all we have to print something like this. If our n is 4, then we have to print like this. So let us find the pattern here, what is going on here. So for our first row, let me write here row numbers. So this is first row, and this is second row, this is third, 4 5 6 and 7. Okay, so first of all, if there is n equal to 4, then we have to print 7 rows. But how, what is the connection here? So the connection is, you can see here, we are printing 4 rows like this, and then 3 rows like this. 3 rows are decreasing and 4 rows are first increasing. So the pattern is, there are, you can see here, this thing is in both side. So this thing, so n minus 1, this is n, so up, so this is n and these are n minus 1. So let me first clear that. So either we can say it 2 into n minus 1. So 2 into n minus 1 means n minus 1 will be 3. So first, second, third, and we have to use it two times. So first, second, third, and then again first, second, third. So 2 into n minus 1 plus 1, first, that center line, center row. So 2 into n minus 1 plus 1, or we can also say it like this. So first we are printing n rows, then n minus 1 rows. Okay, or we can also say it, first we are printing n rows, or we can directly say 2 into n minus 1, that is the same thing. Here 2 into n, here you can derive this from this, 2 into n minus 2 plus 1, yani ki 2 into n minus 1. So these are the same thing. So if our n is 3, then how many rows? If our n is 3, so 2 into 3, so that will be 6, and then we have to subtract 1. So for our 3 we have to print 5 rows. Okay, so that is good now. And after that, so what is the logic here? How are we printing these? So first of all, let me just write it here. So these are the total number of rows. Total number of rows. Okay. And after that, what is the logic here? So for so when we are from 0 from 1 to 4, so in our 4 initial rows we have to print some pattern like this. We already learned that pattern in our previous video, go check it out. And so for our first n rows we have to print pattern like this, and for our next n minus 1 rows then we have to print pattern like this. We have to print a decreasing pattern for our next n minus 1 rows, and for our first n rows then we have to print a increasing pattern. So what is the logic for this? For this, when we are from 1 to n. So for our first row we are printing only 1 star. For our second row we are printing only 2 star. For our third row we are printing 3 star. For our fourth row we are printing 4 star. So that is very simple. We have to print our number of star equal to our number of row, है ना? So let me just write it here. When our row is from 1 to n, okay, so our row is, you can see our n equal to 4. So when we are from 1 2 3 4, so when our row number is from 1 to 4, then we have to print our stars equal to, our row number. And that is good. So I hope you got this thing. When we are from row 1 to row n, then we have to print this. So we can either use here a different loop, or we can just use here a conditional statement. If you don't know about conditional statement, then we have a video on that, go check it out. So when we are from row 1 to row n, then we have to print stars equal to our row number. Okay, so that thing is good now. And after that, so after this, now we are from 5 to 7. So this is n plus 1. Okay, and this is, so what is this? This is 2 into n minus 1. You can see here that is total number of rows. Okay, so this is n plus 1, and that is 2 into n minus 1. So 2 into 4 yani ki 8 minus 1. So 2 into 8 minus 1, that is 7. So when we are, okay, so when we are from n plus 1, so 5 is n plus 1. Okay, so when our row is n plus 1, so when our row is n plus 1, 2, and that 7 is 2 into n minus 1. So when our row is from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1, so when our row is n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1, then we have to do it like this. Then we have to print a decreasing pattern. So how are we printing a decreasing pattern? That is very simple. We have to first print n minus 1 stars, then again these will decrease one by one. So what is the concept here? We also learned that thing in our previous video. If you don't know about these things, first check out that video. So first we have to print n stars. So when we are here, inside this condition, then we have to print n stars and then keep decreasing one by one in every row. Now we are in 5th row. So what is the concept here? How can we connect the things? So first we have to print n stars, n minus 1 stars. So if our n is 4, then we have to print 3 stars. In our 4th row, only in our 4th row, we have to print n stars. In our nth row, we have to print n stars. So that thing is okay. So that is in uppercase in this case. Okay. And after that, we have to print n minus 1 rows every time, and then we have to also decrease our n. So we have to decrease n. Okay. Every time we also have to decrease our n in this condition. When we are in this condition, when our row is from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1, then every time we have to first print n minus 1 number of stars, and then we have to decrease our n. Or we can just create here a copy of n, because our n is officially the number of that thing. So we can create a copy of n. Let me call it m. So m will be equal to n initially, then we have to keep decreasing our m. So I hope you got this thing. So let me just code that part now. So first of all, our total number of rows are 2 into n minus 1. So that is our pattern 1. So our total number of rows are 2 into n minus 1. So we will start outer loop from our row, that is from first row to 2 into n minus 1 less than equal to 2 into n minus 1, and 2 into n is in bracket. So first we have to take input n. You can do here control alt and enter. So after this, so every time our row plus plus. You can either do these both things in different loops, but I'm just going to use here a conditional statement and doing these both things in our one loop, and that is the only loop we are going to use. That is from row equal to 0 to row less than 2 to n minus 1. So if our row number is from 1 to n, so if our row number is from 1 to n, that means our row is greater than equal to 1, and our row is less than equal to n. So I'm using here AND operator, that is logical AND operator, and that means these both condition should be true. If our row is greater than 1 and our row should be less than n, so that means our row is greater than 1 and less than n, so row is in between here, and it can be also equal to 1 and it can be also equal to n. So if our row is from 1 to n, then what we have to do, we have to print stars that are equal to number of row. So we have to print stars. So how are we printing stars? We have to use another loop, and that is the concept of nested loops. So we have to print stars, and star equal to, we will start from printing one star, and we have to print stars equal to our row number. So star should be less than equal to our row number, and star plus plus. That thing doesn't represent the number of star, that total number of stars, that thing doesn't represent the total number of stars, that is just used to represent the number of star we are printing. So you can see here, that is our first star, so this star variable is just gonna represent this. So again, this is our star variable when its value is 1, and star variable is gonna here when its value is 2. So for our first row, our star variable will only have one value. So when our star variable will only have one value, that is our variable name. So star is equal to 1, and our row is also 1. So 1 is less than 1, so it will only print 1 star. So we have to print 1 star here. So we just have to print 1 star when our star value is equal to 1, and we are going to use here print, and after that we have second condition. We are going to use here else if. We are going to use here else if, because these both conditions, this condition, either our star can be from 1 to n, or our star can be from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1. So these conditions are interrelated to each other, that means they are dependent to each other. Or we can say, if this is true, then this cannot be true. So we don't have to check them differently. If I am using here this if, then we are checking these both conditions every time, and we don't have to do that. So either we can directly use here else, or I am using here else if, just for your clear understanding. When our, so our second case is when our row is from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1. So when our row is greater than equal to n plus 1, and our row is less than equal to this 2 into n minus 1. So that thing, this condition, that condition is not necessary. We can just use here else block, and that was the same thing, because these both conditions cannot be true at one time now. So either this is true or this is true, these both cannot be true at one time. So After this, when row is greater than n minus 1 and row is less than 2 into n minus 1, that means our row is from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1. And that means we have to print some pattern like this. And how are we printing that? We are printing m minus 1 stars, and m was copy of n. So we have to take a copy of n. I will use here outside of our loop, copy of m equal to copy of n equal to m. So m is here a copy of n simply, or you can just modify the n here, but that doesn't make any logic. That doesn't make any difference. So when our row is greater than m plus 1, yeah, that is gonna make difference, because we are here directly using here n, and if we change value of n, then this condition can be worse. So that is why we have to use here a copy of n. And after that, we have to print m minus 1 stars. M minus 1 stars. Okay, so we will start here a loop. Star equal to 1, star should be less than equal to m minus 1. So we have to print here m minus 1 stars, and every time star plus plus. And after that, first we have to print a star as out, a star, and after that we have to decrease our m. So every time, how to decrease m minus minus. So okay, and after that, for our first row we printed something in this if else block, in this whole block, and after printing one line, then we have to be in next line. S out println, just println. Okay, so I wrap this. Okay. Okay, so you can see here, we using this outer loop, we are printing number of rows, and we are just using a conditional statement that will tell us whether we have to print a pattern like this or like this. So when we are from 1 to 4, we are printing a increasing pattern. So when we are from 1 to n, we are printing increasing pattern, that is from 1 to row. And when we are from n plus 1 to 2n minus 1, that is we have to print pattern like this. So in our second condition, when our row number is greater than n plus 1, greater than equal to n plus 1, and our row is less than 2 into n minus 1, that means we are here, so we have to print a decreasing pattern. So this is a loop to print a decreasing pattern according to our m. So suppose we are in this row, so we have to print three number of stars. So our n is currently 4, so we have to print star, that is 3 stars, and every time our row will decrease. We don't have to decrease here our m, we have to decrease it outside of this. We don't have to decrease it inside of our for loop, or we will just keep decreasing it, and in our first row, in printing our first row, our m will become 0. So I think everything is good now. Let us check it. So when our n is 4 and our pattern is looking good. So for our first row, we are printing 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, and then 4 stars, and then we are decreasing 3, 2, and 1. So that is good. So let us take another example. If n is 10, then we are printing something like this, or you can also add some spaces here. So after printing a star, I am printing a space, extra space. So that doesn't make any much difference, but the pattern will be more beautiful. So you can see here, that is good now. So that is our pattern 1. So it is like this. So that is our first pattern, and that was the logic to print this pattern. If we are if we are from 1 to n, then we have to print a pattern like this in an increasing pattern. And when we are after n, that means when we are from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1, then we have to print a decreasing pattern. So that was just the logic. and we are now good to go. So that was our first pattern. I'm not gonna comment this, I will just comment this whole pattern. And now it's time for our second pattern, pattern 2, and that will be, so this is our second pattern, and we have to print something like this, that is a kind of pyramid. Okay, so how can we do it? First of all, let us see the logic here for our first row. So this is our, let me write here row number 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are our row numbers. So for our first row, we have to print 1 star. For our second row, we have to print 2 stars. For our third row, we have to print 3 stars. And for our fourth row, we have to print 4 stars. So that is the same logic. We have to print number of stars. Number of stars will be equal to our row number. So that thing is very clear. And after that, our main logic is to print some spaces before printing our stars. And also you will see a different thing here. So you can see here, this is a star, and this is also a star, but here is a space now to separate this thing, and then again a star. So, or we can say here, we are printing a star and we are also printing a space. So space is here a compulsory. So let me erase this. So you can see here we are printing a star and then a space. So we have to print here a space compulsorily. So in our next line we have to print a star and then a space, and then a star and then space. So here a star and space. So that space is for making a separation, and after that a star and space. So that space will make a separation like this, and then a star and then a space. So we know that now. So when we are printing a star, then we have to also print a space with it. So that thing is clear now. Star and space, star and space, star and space, star and space. So that thing is clear. But before printing our stars, we also have to print a spaces, a number of spaces, and that will be, so let me check here. So this have one extra space, and this have one and two extra space, and this have 1, 2 and 3. So we can see here clearly, for our first row we are printing 3 extra spaces before printing our stars, and for our second row we are printing 2 extra spaces, and for our third row we are printing 1 extra space before printing our stars, and for our fourth row we are printing 0 extra spaces before printing our stars. So how can we print stars? We know that n is 4 and we have to start printing from 3. So for our first row we have to print number of spaces. Number of spaces will be equal to our n minus our row number. That thing is very clear. Let us check it again now. So for our first row, our n is first 4. So 4 minus our number of row. So 4 minus 1. So 4 minus 1, 3. So we have to print 3 stars, 3 extra spaces. So we have to print 3 extra spaces before printing our stars. And star will be, that is number of row. So we have to print these extra spaces before printing our stars. So we have to first print our spaces and then stars. Okay. So we will first print spaces and then stars. And suppose for our third row, we have to first print spaces. So n is 4 and row is 3. So we have to print 1 extra space and then 3 stars. So pattern will be like this. And let me erase it now. So let us check it now with code. So first we have to print here n number of rows. So 1 to 4. So n number of rows, that is clear. So row equal to 1, row should be less than equal to n, row plus plus. So we have to print n rows, and after that we have to print number of spaces. So I will use another loop here. Int spaces, spaces will start from 1, and we have to print n minus row spaces. So space should be less than equal to n minus n minus row and then space plus plus. So first we will print 1 2 3 spaces. Okay, so we have to print just space, and after that I have to use here print, and after this loop we have to print the stars, and that is why we have to use here a different loop and a star. So we will start printing from number of row stars from 1 to our star should be less than equal to our number of row, and after that star plus plus. So we have to print here a star with space. Okay, so after this, and that is looking good. Now we have to just print a new line. So after printing our spaces and then stars, then we have to be in a new line. So let's check it now. Let me know in the comment section how is this new setup, and when our n is 4. So that is thing good, that is very good. That pattern is exactly like this. You can clearly see here we just derived some formulas, some basic formulas, and we just have to implement them using these loops, and we have these amazing patterns. So for our first row we are printing 1 2 and 3. So we are printing, right, we are printing 3 spaces before printing our star, and for our second row we are printing 1 2. So we are only printing 2 spaces before printing these stars, and we are just printing extra space with this star here, space with star. Okay, so that thing is very good now. And what if we are not printing extra space with the star? Then our pattern will be, then the pattern will be exact same, but it will look something like messy. And yeah, so we have to also print a space with it, and that pattern we did in our previous video. We did that pattern in our previous video. If you don't know, just check it out. And if our n is 6, then that thing is good. So this is now our pattern 2, and I will comment it here. And now let's move to our pattern 3. So our pattern 3 is this. So this is the exact same pattern, right? So in our first row we are printing 1 star, but instead of printing star we are just printing a number here, and we have to print some spaces exactly like this some now. So the formula will be exact same, so we just have to use these formulas, copy paste, and also copy paste. So both the formulas for printing spaces and printing stars will be exactly same like our previous task, our previous pattern, because the pattern is exact same. And instead of just printing our stars, we have to print here numbers. But how can we print our numbers? And also numbers भी हमें ऐसे नहीं प्रिंट करने, हमें नंबर कैसे करने हैं? So in our first row we have to print 1, and in our second row we have to print 2 3, and in our next row we have to print 4 5 6. So you can see here in our any row we are printing some numbers that are from previous row, or we can say we are just printing numbers consequently. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So we have to print something like this. So one thing is clear here, that the number is independent of loops. Okay, so one thing is clear here, these numbers are independent of loops, so we don't have to initialize or do anything with them inside of our loops. So first we will initialize this number. So what number we are starting from? We are starting from 1, so we will just take here a number that will be from 1, and we have to initialize it before our loops, because we have to use them inside of our loops. And then we have to use the same algorithm. So I will just copy paste it, copy, and I'm gonna paste it here. So we are printing some rows from 1 to n, and that is okay. And after that we are printing some spaces, that is from n minus row time. That is the same formula as our previous pattern. and we are printing also some spaces here. We are printing here this one space, two space and three space, and for our second row one space and two space. For third row we are printing one space, so that is the exact same pattern. So we have to print here a star, oh sorry, a space. And after that, when we are printing stars, instead of printing our star, we have to print a number here. And number here you can see here this number, oh there we have to print that number. So instead of printing our star, we have to print a number. Okay, so we are printing this number, and also after printing this number we also have to add a space with it. So how can we concatenate this number with a string space? So this number is an integer and a space is a string. So when we have to add our this number with our string, so we have to use this plus operator. That thing is concatenation, and we will learn about these things in our string videos. So I will make this video soon, and that means this whole will be a string now. So our number, that is 1 now, and a space with 1. So after printing 1, every time we have to increase our number. So when we have printed 1, so we have to increase our number, so that next column, so when we are printing 2, our next column, so this 3 will be, so we have to print now 3. So that is why we have to increase this number inside of our loop, because every time we are increasing our number and we are printing it, so every time we also have to increase our number. So that is why every time we are increasing, so that is why we have to write here this number plus plus inside of our for loop, because for loop is iterating again and again, and our number will be increased again and again. So that is, rest of the stuff is same. So when our n is equal to 4, and that is the exact same pattern, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and that is the exact same pattern. So not only this pattern, you can do this thing in any pattern. Suppose I have to write this thing in my first pattern, so I will just uncomment it and comment this thing. So what was our first pattern? Let me try it. What was that? Okay, that was this pattern. So when we have to print some numbers, first we have to initialize a number variable, this number before our loop. Okay, so we have initialized our number before our loop, and we just have to replace these stars with this number. So instead of printing this star, we have to print our number and then a space. So instead of printing this star, we have to print number, and everything is okay. So let's run it now. And when our n is 4, so okay, we also have to increase our number, and we also have to increase it inside of a loop. So number plus plus every time after printing, so number plus plus every time after printing, we are increasing our number inside of our loop. And when n is 4, so that is the exact same pattern, 7 8 9 10, and that is up to 16. Okay, so after this was our pattern number 3. So let me now comment it. So that was our pattern number 3. So now let's move to our pattern number 4. Pattern number 4, and that is this. So that looks like a complex pattern, but that is not complex. So what is going on here? First of all, that thing we are printing some more rows than our n. So that thing was in here. In our first pattern, we are printing more number of rows than our n, and same thing is here. We are printing more number of rows than our n. And how many more rows? So you can see here, first these are our n number of rows, and then we are printing 3 more rows. That means n minus 1 more rows. So first our n rows, and then n minus 1 more rows, n minus 1. So that is exactly what we just derived, 2 into n minus 1. So that are our total number of rows. Total number of rows. So total number of rows will be equal to 2 into n minus 1. Okay. And what are the different things here? So first, this is our first row, second, third, fourth, 5, 6, and then 7. So for our first row, we are printing 1 star. So let me divide it in parts. So these are in different parts now. Yeah. So when we are printing rows from 1 to 4, we are printing it in increasing pattern. And from 5 to 7, we are printing it in decreasing pattern. That is the same thing we did in our first pattern. And so what we are doing here. So for our first row, we are printing 1 star. For our second row, we are printing 2 star, then 3 star, then 4 star. And then after this fourth row, when we are from 5 to 7, so these are also divided into two parts like we are doing if else. So when we are from 5 to 7, then we are first printing 3 stars, that means n minus 1 stars, and then again decrease it. So this formula will be exact same for printing our number of stars. So where is the formula? There it is. So I will take it there. थोड़ा फास्ट फॉरवर्ड में करके देख लेना वीडियो को. So for our printing rows from 1 to n, we have to print some particular number of stars, and that will be number of row. So for our first row, we are printing 1 star. For second, we are printing 2 stars. But here, what is the difference? We have to print some number of spaces. We also have to print some number of spaces with it. And also you can see here, with our stars, we have to print a space. And that thing is compulsory here, like in our previous pattern. So first of all, printing a space with our star is compulsory, and also we have to print some extra spaces before printing our stars. So how many extra spaces? When we are talking about when we are from 1 to n, so we have to print first n minus 1, then n minus row. We can clearly write here. So before printing our stars, we have to print some pet spaces here. So spaces will be equal to n minus our row number. That thing we just learned so many times. So n is our 4. So for our first row, we are printing 4 minus 1. That means we are printing 3 extra spaces. है. And for our second row, we are printing n minus 2. Row is 2 and n is 4. So 4 minus 2, we are printing 2 extra spaces. So that thing is clear now. And when we are talking about this case, when we are from 5 to 7, how many number of spaces we are printing? You can see here there is one extra space, then there is two extra space, then there is 1 2 3 extra space. So how many extra spaces? Row number is greater than n. So I can see here that is the difference. So 5 minus 4 is 1, so we are printing 1 extra space, and 6 minus 4 is 2, so we are printing 2 extra space, and 7 minus 4 is 3, and we are printing 3 extra space for our 7th row. So we can also write here, uh, let me delete it first. So that is m minus 1 our number of stars we have to print. And before printing our stars, how many spaces? So spaces will be equal to, so rows are now greater than n, so rows are greater, and we have to decrease, subtract n from here. So you can see here 5 minus 4 will be 1, so we are printing 1's extra space before printing our stars. So these are the exact two formulas we derived here. And let me try it on code now. So how many number of total rows are here? So total number of rows are 2 into n minus 1. So 4 and row will start from 1. Row should be less than equal to 2 into n minus 1. 2 into n minus 1. If you still didn't get this, just you can check it, you can check it out this thing by yourself. And every time row will increase. So every time what we are doing, we have to check in these both conditions. So if our row is greater than equal to 1 and our row is less than equal to n, so when our row is 1 to n, that is the same condition we did in our first pattern. So when our row is from 1 to n, we have to first print space and then stars. So first we have to print space. So else block is another, and first we have to print spaces. So you, for spaces we have to start a loop spaces, and we have to start printing our spaces from 1. Spaces should be less than equal to n minus rows. You can clearly see here n is our the given value, and we have to print n minus our row number. So spaces will be n minus what is our row number. Row number is this row, and every time space plus plus. Okay, we have to write here space. So we have to print a space here now, a single space. And after printing our spaces, so after this loop we print our spaces for 1 to n, and after printing our spaces, now we have to print our stars. So stars, number of stars will be equal to row number. So star, we will start printing from 1, and total number of stars will be equal to row number. So row number, and every time our star plus plus. So we just have to print star, a star, and also a space. You can see here we also have to make this difference between them. So we are also printing a space with our star. So star and space. And after that, when we are in else block means that our row number is from n plus 1 to 2 into n minus 1. That means we are here now. So when we are here, we have to use these formulas. So our number of spaces will be equal to rows minus 1. So first we have to print our spaces. So we have to start printing from one space, and our space should be less than equal to row minus n, because now rows are greater than n. So our spaces will be equal to rows minus n, and every time that is row, every time space plus plus. So after this we have to just print a space, and after this loop now we have to print our stars. So using the same thing, star equal to from 1 to how many stars, we have to print m minus 1 star. Okay, we have to now create a copy of n. So int m equal to n, because we can just modify our n, because we are using this n to check our condition, and we are also using it here. So we can't just modify n, we have to make it a copy. We have to make a copy of n. So how many stars, m minus 1, and star plus plus. Okay, that thing is good. So we have to print a star and then space, star and space. And after this loop we have to decrease our m minus minus. I hope you got this thing from our pattern 1. And after this else block, after we have printed, let me do it here. After we have successfully printed our stars, so when we are outside of this loops, so when we have printed our pattern, when we have printed our one row, then we have to be in next line. So using this if else, we are printing our one row, that can be either before n or after n. So doesn't matter what row is it, after every row we have to be in next line. So that's why we are using here this println. So let's run it now. And when our n is 4, so that thing is very beautiful now. Okay, so this is our very beautiful pattern, and when our n is 10, so that is it. So that's amazing. So this is our pattern number 4, I guess. And you just have to derive these basic formulas just by looking at this pattern. So you can divide it in two parts. You can either do it like here. First you have to print. You can do it by. You can also do it like this. First you have to print n minus 1 increasing pattern, and then you have to print n in decreasing pattern. So you can either do it like this. You can traverse from 1 to n minus 1 in increasing order, and then from n to 2n minus 1 in decreasing order. That's your choice. And there are so many ways to do any question, and there is nothing wrong in that. No approach is wrong. You can do these things by yourself. So now it's time for this pattern, and that thing is very amazing. So how can we do it? Hmm. So first of all, here n is 5, so we are printing 5 rows. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5. And how many number of stars we are printing? So we are printing 1 star in our first row and 2 stars in our second row. Okay, that is good. But in our third row we are still printing 2 stars, and for our fourth row we are still printing 2 stars. I don't know why. But in our fifth row we are printing 5 number of stars. So these things are good. For our first and second row we are printing 1 and 2 star, and also for our fifth row we are printing 5 number of stars. So these three things are good here. But what we have to do inside here, we can just divide our this pattern in three parts. So first this, second this, and third this. Or yeah, or we can just divide it in two parts. These two patterns, these two blocks of rows are equal. Let me just write it here. So we can see here, when our row number, let me just write it here. So we can clearly see here one thing: when our row number is equal to 1, or when our row number is 1, or when it is equal to 2. When our row number is equal to 1, equal to 2, and equal to 5. So you can see here 1, 2, and 5. We are just printing stars equal to our number of row. So when our row is equal to 1, 2, or 5, so it can be either equal to 1, either 2, or 5. So when it is not from, we are, when it is exactly 1, 2, or 5, then we are printing our star equal to number of row. Okay, so that thing is good now. But what about other rows? Or we can also say it like, this is 1, this is 2, and this is our n. Then we have to print star equal to number of row, because n is here 5 in this example, but we have to generalize our formulas. So when our row number is from 1, 2, or n, then we have to print stars equal to number of row. Okay, that thing is clear now. But what about other rows? You can see here. What about other rows? Okay. There is one extra space, and then there is two extra spaces. So for our third row, first we are printing 1 star, and then 1 extra space, and then 1 star. And for our fourth row we have to print a star, and then 2 spaces, and then a star. And for our fifth row, if that n is not 5, so when n is 6, so we have to print 6 number of spaces in our sixth row, and then fifth row will contain only 2 spaces. So we have to think it in general formula. So in our fifth row, don't look at it, don't look here, just suppose n is greater than 5. Then what we are doing, we have to print a star, and then a more number of space, and then a star. So you can see here these stars are good. So these stars are exactly, first we are before printing our space, we don't know how many number of spaces we have to print. Before printing our number of spaces, we have to print a star, and after printing our number of spaces we again have to print a star. So that thing is common in all the rows, all the rest of the rows. So we can directly write it here. So when our row is 1, 2 or n, then we have to print number of stars equal to our number of row. Else when there is some another case, then what we have to do? First we have to print one star, print star, and then some number of spaces. We will see how many number of spaces, and then after printing our number of spaces again we have to print a star. So again a star. So how many number of spaces? That is the only thing is remaining. So let me erase it now. So how many number of spaces we are printing? We are starting from printing one number of spaces in our third row, and then we are increasing our number of spaces. For our next row we are printing two spaces. Suppose for our next row we have to print three spaces and stars in the boundaries, and for even next row we have to print one more number of space. So you can see here these number of spaces are independent of rows. So as we were doing in these questions where we were printing this number, so these numbers were also independent of these rows, and same here these spaces are independent of these rows. Or we can also find a pattern that suppose this is in our third row we are printing one extra space between these stars, and for our fourth row we have to print two extra space. For our fifth row we are in this condition. So suppose n is greater than 5, so in our fifth row we have to print one more space. That means 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have to print 3 spaces for our fifth row, and for our sixth row we have to print 4 spaces. So we can also generalize a new formula from here for printing our number of stars from for our number of spaces. We can just use here row number minus 2. That is it. We can clearly see this thing. For our third row we are printing one star. That means 3 minus 2, that is equal to 1. For our fourth row we are printing two stars. So 4 minus this 2 will be equal to 2. For our fifth row, row number 5 minus 2 will be equal to 3. So we are printing 3 number of extra spaces. So that is the formula to print our number of spaces. So how many number of spaces? Row minus 2 number of spaces. And let me erase all this thing now. So that is these are the two conditions that we have to check. If our row is either equal to 1 or equal to 2 or equal to n, then we have to print stars equal to our number of row. Else we just have to print a star and then some spaces and then again a star. So that was our pattern number 4. And after that, is that our pattern number 5? 1 2 3 4 5, yeah. So we have to start a loop. How many rows we are printing? We are printing rows and rows. Okay, so our row will be from 1, and the row should be less than equal to n, row plus plus. So that is a basic thing. And when our row number is equal to either 1 or 2 or n, so if our row is equal to 1, or, so we have to use here logical or. So either equal to row equal to 1 or our row equal to 2 or our row equal to n. So if one of these conditions are true, either equal to 1 or 2 or n, then we have to print our star number of rows. So we have to print star, and from 1 to how many times we have to print it? Number of rows time. So less than equal to number of row star plus plus, and we have to just print only a star, and in our else block, so in our else block we are here. So first we have to print a star. S out, star. So we are in else block. That means our rows are from 3 to n minus 1. Okay. So we have to first print a star and then some particular number of spaces, and that is row minus 2 number of extra spaces. So int spaces, we have to print how many spaces? We have to print row minus 2 number of spaces. Row minus 2 number of spaces, and every time plus plus. So we have to print row minus 2 number of these spaces, and after that, after printing our spaces, again we have to print a star. So after this loop, that means our number of spaces are now done, and again we have to print a star now. So after this if else block, that means our one row is completed. That doesn't matter what row it is. So after one this if else condition, our row is completed, and at the end we have to use here a println. That means after this line we have to be in a new line. So let us check it now. I hope this is correct code. So when our n is equal to 5, okay, that thing is looking good. So suppose our n is equal to 10, then we are doing it like this. Okay, let us try printing some extra spaces. So extra space, one more extra space here and one extra space here. So let us try it now. You can also try some different patterns by yourself. And when our n is 10, okay, that is good now. So after adding some extra spaces to every single star and also one extra spaces in our number of spaces, so we are printing two spaces. That means a pair of spaces. So that thing is now looking beautiful, and that was our pattern number 5. So yeah, that is it. You can try different patterns by yourself, and now it is time for practice problem. And today in our task 15, this is the pattern we have to print. Suppose for our n equal to 5, we have to print this pattern. So you have to identify the pattern here, and you have to do everything by yourself. I am not gonna give any hint. And the one thing that I'm going to say here is this pattern is exactly inverse of this thing. So you can see here we are printing 2 into n minus 1 number of rows, and here in this pattern we did today, we are first printing in increasing order and in decreasing order. So and today in this task pattern, what we are doing here, and today in this task pattern, first we are printing in decreasing order and then in increasing order. So it is like the inverse. Okay, I forgot here to print 4 stars, 1 2 3 4. So 4 stars should be there like here. So first 5 4 3 2 1, and then from this 1 2 3 4 5. So we can just say here this is the inverse of this fourth pattern we did today. So that is it for today, everyone. If this video is helpful, go hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel. एंड ज़रूर बताना यार ये सेटअप कैसा लगा, कुछ रिकमेंडेशन हो अपग्रेड करने के लिए तो ज़रूर बताना. एंड थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग.